Because it's a little messed up, so I imagine it's a little uncomfortable for him, but also, like, cats doesn't like it when you put a wet washcloth over their foot. Well, enough about cat stories. We're finally into the series. It's a best of 5 finals. And in the top left, as the green Terran, she is Kyla. In the bottom right, as the pink Zerg, she's Telia. And this match has happened before in the finals. Kyla got 3-0'd by our, I'll say, reigning champion. Although last week Telia was sick, so she did not participate. But the 3-0 was not truly, like, indicative of what the games are like. I suppose when you looked at the very last few minutes of every single game, then yeah, that looks like a 3-0 because Telia was winning. But Kyla, at least in 2 out of 3 of the games, I don't really remember the third game, but I can't remember what happened there, but at least 2 of them, she got a substantial lead, Helen run-bys, I think, in both of the games, and was unable to capitalize on it. I think she went mech as a follow-up, more of a mech player, and Telia just had really good game sense. Run-bys ended up really screwing up Kyla. I think one of the games she had to go bio, and it just, yeah, run-bys threw off her rhythm. And then Swarm Hosts. She, you know, kind of had a bad attack against it, and then it snowballed into Swarm Hosts doing what they do best, which is really just carrying, pushing the Terran or the Protoss or whatever into their own bases and feeling like they can't escape, and then just constantly taking bad engagements because Swarm Host Locusts are free. So that was kind of the sum of their last engagement, but it's been 4 weeks since then, as that was 2 tournaments ago, so 4 weeks ago. And a month is a long time. Now, I'm not saying that these players, like either one of them, are grinding a ladder and they're gonna, you know, really have different results, but we're not up. It's like, it's also one of those things where we're not at that pro gamer level where you kind of expect a certain consistency. Like if they're this good, they'll probably be around this good for some time. I mean, with players that aren't pros, it's usually not inches that they are given when they improve. It's usually like, you know, they go under and then they come back up, they plateau, and then they go back under, and then they really shoot up and increase quite a bit. And, you know, maybe it's the same thing that happens with pro gamers, but it's not nearly as obvious. When a pro gamer feels like he's doing a lot better, he or she, I guess, it might be because they're getting that last drone in a second faster. Like, whoa, you know, watch out there, buddies. But it makes a huge difference in their game. Amongst, like, you know, anyone below pro gamers, basically, maybe below Grandmaster, I feel like you see really substantial increases when they finally get that spike, when they finally hit above their plateau. But anyways, someone else is gonna be like a master of theory craft for this type of stuff, because plenty of people have written books on how you improve your mentality, your practice regimen, and all that type of stuff. And it's still not really infected StarCraft, but it is sometimes cool to watch those graphs that are made of like how you actually dip and level out and spike up and spike. Like, it's cool to watch those sometimes happen in your own play if you're attentive enough, I suppose. We have a 3cc build versus the regular third hatch. I did mention Telia really likes Lings, and as far as the theory goes, you would think that mech would be a good thing to have against Telia, but Telia knows how to use banelings against mech. They can definitely be used, and she knows how to use roaches, and I think she is now well aware that Kyla's going to be more of a mech player, even though she has not seen the second factory yet. Now, she did see the third CC, and there's no wall off anyway, so she would know about it. But she didn't really know if it was going to be follow-up, and the roaches may or may not be a response to the idea Kyla's going to go mech. They might just be what Telia wanted to do on this map. On such a small map, you're usually going to feel a lot more constrained as a Ling player. Not nearly as many run-bys. Theory, again. You know, there's plenty of run-bys from lots of different Zerg players. But anyways, Theory. Not going to have a lot of run-bys. If you want mutas, if those are still a thing, you wouldn't have nearly as much time to buy with mutas and try and bring the army back, because they're literally at your front door once they walk out of their front door. So I like roaches. I think Telia's playing a smart game, but Kyla, I think, also knows that Telia is probably not going to be the type of person to all-in her, so the third CC builds are also going to be quite good. Potentially. There's some Cyclones following this up as the Roaches are shown for, I believe, the first time. Single Marine to maybe clear up some Overlords that kind of just sometimes lay around here. If there is an Overlord here, it's usually safe, but a Marine pops forward and suddenly the Queens feel like they have to do something about it. That is a lot of Hellbats, and those Cyclones pack a punch. Now, Kyla, this is not the first time she's done this exact mech build against Telia. But while her +1 timing seems to work out well, I do recall maybe she doesn't have the fastest or best executed +2 timing with this. Because that's... You kind of got 2 big punches. Well, I guess 3 if you include the Hellbat push. You got the Hellbat push, then you have the +1 with the Cyclones, and then you have, if you're going to continue building Cyclones, you have another opportunity to maybe go for a +2. But by then, usually the Zerg player is kind of more comfortable, assuming they haven't taken drastic damage. And it's been a while since I've seen, like, Gumiho, for instance, go for the mass Cyclone +2 build, push, composition, whatever you want to call it. Telia's from New Zealand? Is she? I always thought she was American. That is a lot of Hellions trying to run by and grab any amount of drones possible. Now, 3 do make it into the left side, but only 2 to the right, and they're both severely injured. So, unfortunately, for that many Hellions, not really worth. As a mech player, your Hellions aren't your... Like, there's no gap where you don't have a lot of Hellions, usually. And we are getting into a bit later of the stages, but she just also lost her Cyclones. And she really is at this point where she does not have any army. Kyla is probably going to die right now. Telia was not kidding around. She was already up to 61 drones without being punished. She didn't go for a 4th base. She's not going to try to go to Hydras. She went into a Baneling Nest without speed, so I don't know if this was really the intention, but it's going to work out all right. And most importantly, she has a lot of Roaches. She's going to go into Aspire to take advantage of what she assumes is going to be Kyla's, you know, rapid tank production, because now she realizes she's about to be busted. But I'm not even sure she's going to need it. Now, Telia would have been a bit better off having some earlier high grounds vision, but it lings it up there anyways, and this is going to be a game. Telia taking what she knows, probably from their last meeting, and just utterly dominating. I mean, Telia is, I don't think, the type of person who is going to go for any 2-base pushes, all-ins, and I'm going to stick with that, but that was a really well-done 3-base attack. Especially since, you know, they just gave away all of their units and they don't have a lot of starport production because their starport production was late. Really well done. Kyla's not going to be the map chooser. Hello. Mouse accuracy game is most likely Osu. Was born in New Zealand. Oh, okay, there you go. I'm a little worried about that maybe being a sign of things to come. For, you know, much of this tournament, I've talked about how Telia has come to be such a multiple champion of the Banshee tournaments. And it's all, you know, based around not necessarily her, you know, supreme mechanics or game knowledge, but she certainly has good ones. And on top of that, probably most importantly for a tournament like this, she just knows how to mix things up, read her opponents, and win best ofs. So she's reading into Kyla a lot. Kyla's gonna have to change things up. She already tried that Cyclone Hellbat type of build against Telia once last time they met, and it looks like Telia I believe she did take damage the first time, then she like quickly learned from it and was able to bounce back. Now she really has learned how to deal with it and bounce back. So maybe going into bio as we get in a lost and found. All right, both players are ready. Still in a best of 5. The top right, down 1. It is the green Terran, Kyla. In the bottom left, that was the pink Zerg. She's Telia. I know Kyla can go bio. I think she like tried to do a pretty decent push on Acid Plant. But one of the problems that you have against Telia when you do go bio is that her run buys are pretty brutal. I guess, now, while Telia came way before Raynor, most players came before Raynor. I guess you would compare her to Raynor. A lot of lings, maybe even skipping some necessary upgrades or building timings or something like that to even get, like, more lings. That's what she can do. Seen her push off Baneling Nests and ZVZ to just go mass flooded lings. She also does this thing that was, I feel, more popular back when Telia was, like, an NA pro gamer. Like, along the days of, like, Suppy being around, too. Where she goes for, like, a lot of hatcheries. Not a lot of, like, macro hatcheries in her own base, but just, like, takes the map of hatcheries at a time where it's really not usually what you're supposed to be doing. But she does it while she, like, kind of envelops the map and takes control. An old experimental style that I think just really died out. For one reason or another. But anyways, it's up to Kyla to really change things up. I think it's obvious. I mean, it was her job to do so when the last time they met, and then after that first game where it seemed like she was just perfectly read and countered, I think you can definitely say it. So, how is she gonna do it? Changing up the composition certainly is one of the ways. Changing up the build is another. That 3cc was scouted very, very quickly. Not that it's hard to scout necessarily, but it's kind of one of those things where, like, you'd rather not give them confirmation. And then on top of that, just in general, 3cc builds don't give you a lot of flexibility in terms of, you know, attacks. You can go for a 3cc and then go for a Hellbent attack, and some Zergs might have been put into a false sense of security, but most Zergs at this level, not so much. At least not Telia. And it's more about, like, those two bases. You know, do you have a Banshee on the way? Is it going to be a Hellbat push? Is it going to be, you know, two factory? That would probably be the more potent version of what we just saw Kyla do, is the 2 factory on 2 bases. It's harder, it's faster, but she's going to go into a starport. So this is going to be harder for Telia to read perfectly. Especially if, like, a Marine or a Viking comes out. And then we'll see if she keeps that tech lab for Sim or for Banshees. Barely blocks that drone. Wants to grab the kill on it too, but looks like Telia is the one that's going to be out micering this Reaper today. A little bit of a bother. You really wish you get that drone, but you know what? Kyla's going to have to leave soon. Speed is finishing up. 320 is usually that good mark. Unless you're able to get a scout into the main base and see for sure that they took a later gas or no gas. That's when you want to skedaddle. And while the Reaper doesn't have to be saved, I guess, like, it's good to use with your Hellbats. Grenade can be surprisingly helpful, or soak up some queen damage. We do once again have an armory on the way, and we might just be seeing what she used against Vriska. So that medevac first into the Banshee, both to attack and to defend against any potential roaches. Telia is once again going to go into roaches. Now, if you're going to play safe against someone, you know, like, you're not the all-seeing eye, you're not flipping Raynor, as I brought him up, so I'll say it again. You're not Raynor. The safest way to play, I think, as a Zerg player is technically to get a Roach Warren. Like, a Baneling Nest can also cover your ass in a lot of situations, but if you really want to play it safe, the ability to make roaches, not even that you have to go into roaches, but the ability to make them is quite important. Why don't they always pick a Roach Warren then? Well, it's 150 minerals and a drone, and there's other things they can be doing, and well, a lot of pro gamers know that they don't have to make roaches in some situations. But this is really safe, and it's extra safe because she's even building a bit of a wall with the evolution chamber. So while the Hellions could have come forward as just Hellions and maybe given Tilia a bit of a fright, they're coming in as Hellbats, and the only thing that she has to do is buy time with the Lings and the Queens. Now, she doesn't have a lot of extra Queens. Only 2 right now, or really only 1. But she's building more. She's going to be pulling the larva injecting Queens forward as well. And to be honest, it seems like it's going to be fine enough, even with the cool little Hellbat micro going down. Good target fire on the medevac. Just enough Lings, especially since the Hellbats are starting to kind of get pulled apart from each other and have to cover each other's backs, that was an easy cleanup, and Tilia didn't even have to make roaches. She made a few, you know, just to be careful, and she was making those extra Queens already, but then she went right back into droning, only a little bit supply block. She does have a late lair, though, and talking about those Banshees, gotta bring up the fact that Kyla is kind of changing things up here, going for 2 more starports, which I don't think is something she can support on 2 bases. Well, she's going on to her 3rd, I guess, so. But it's usually 2 port and then much later a 3rd port, so I'm surprised to see it this fast, and unfortunately, it might just be scouted. All Tilia needs to see is the 2nd starport building, even if she didn't see the 3rd one. And that is just really, really, really not good for Kyla. This is supposed to be much more of a surprise. But speaking of surprises, Hellions do get into a drone line since all the Lings were barbecued. Gonna try and go back for round number 2. Barely not finding it. 5 drones isn't terrible. Banshee goes over to the left side, and by this point, Kyla realizes that she is completely scouted, but it's gonna go just continue with her composition because, I mean, you're not gonna do anything else. You're not gonna cancel the starport, so we're already such a big investment. But you're not gonna get the surprise 20 drone kills or more likely 3rd hatchery snipe that you would if this was hidden. And you are gonna be at risk of a lot of Ling floods. Your production on not starports, especially when you go triple starport, is just not, there's not a lot of it. Now in this case, Kyla is just messing up a little. Her macro is not perfect. She's banking minerals and she should be building Hellions. But that is a very scary thing, that if you don't catch the Lings, if you don't have Hellions, if there you have Banelings and your Hellions get caught. Ooh, first Banshee goes down. Then you're gonna be in trouble against a lot of very inexpensive units. If roaches come across the map and the Banshees don't scout that, that's also something that can be very scary. I've seen a couple of 2-port Banshee players die because roaches simply circumvented their Banshees. Not because they had Hydras and Queens coming along, but because the Banshees reacted too late. So those are all scary things. But Tilia is not going for that kind of what is somewhat a desperate move. Like, you're gonna want some way to deal with the Banshees to really have a good macro game. And her choice is Aspire. As the Banshee count grows, Tilia should probably also think about getting double Spore Crawlers, maybe at like the front of her bases. These are both Spine Crawlers. Just to make sure that suddenly 8 Banshees don't appear and tear down a single Spore Crawler, because they definitely will. But she's, I guess she has faith in her Queen count with the Overseers constantly tagging, and she did get her units across the map slightly unseen, I guess. It was like halfway seen. They were halfway across the map before the Banshee saw it. So this is pretty much what I was talking about, though. The roach speed makes them get fast and far. And they do get into the natural 3rd base and barely into the main base. Now, the Banshees will be great at cleaning roaches up, so this doesn't last very long. Especially now that the Banshees also have their speed. But the Lings, if there's like 20 Lings in here, that's a big chore to clean up. And just in general, this is a lot of really good denied mining time. 13 TVs went down, and Tilia did not have to worry about being attacked by all these Banshees. So 4 bases, 79 drones, 10 Nitas on the way. Nitas are great against Banshees. They're fast, and Banshees don't have a lot of health and no armor. So Nitas are fine. Purpose of being a little bit slower, but they're not as good versus battlecruisers, and that is why we had the 3rd starport. So we have a 4th starport on the way, is we're gonna go into battlecruisers. Now this is a really funky thing to do, and it does rely a lot on having that momentum. Like, the Banshees are not doing enough to really warrant a battlecruiser transition, But if Telia is getting, like, if she eventually does get, well, there you go, some damage done with the Banshees, then maybe the back cruisers will be good enough. Transfuses could come down on the hatchery, but she stops to shoot the Banshees instead. There's so many extra queens that she didn't even really need the transfuses for her queens, so. But oh, look at this. Oh, okay, so you kill one hatchery, but you lose a command center. Definitely more expensive for the Terran to do that. Maybe you get a second hatchery, but now the mutas are in your face and your battlecruiser is not quite out yet. You have no anti-air. The Spire was a complete surprise to our Terran. Never got back there to scout. Maybe considered if there wasn't going to be a Spire, that it'd be Corruptors, not mutas. But this is game. A fun game for sure, but Telia was all over this. And I think it really all goes back to that Overlord getting a slow Overlord, getting the scout that far back into the base. As I said, mutas aren't that great against battlecruisers, but it still takes a long time to kill them. That is it. Good game. Telia takes a 2-0 to lead the series. Thank you, Luke Nukem Streaming, for the Twitch Prime sub. That almost got me multiple times. Luke Nukem Streaming. So that puts us on the match points. Telia seems to have really good handle on this. Telia is not getting the surprises she was the time they played before, where she was letting Hellions in and Cyclones were surprising her. And she's doing this without even really emphasizing scouting, by the way. It's not like she's always dedicating to Overlord speed. So that's why the slow Overlord getting into the main with that particular build was just really not ideal. If this is that battle mech thingy, you normally go into the second reactor factory before the second starport even. You're not wrong. Some of the words used to describe it was kind of funny, and you're describing it kind of oddly. If it's gonna be battle mech, you don't really have a second starport in general. Blue Shift could be our last map of the series. And I guess you could argue if Kyla had missile turrets and Hellbats defending all of her bases, that would have been a fine game. You could say that. The roaches were only a one-time thing, and then it was just Ling Muta. But there weren't any missile turrets. I think a lot of players expect the Mutas or whatever comes out of the Spire or Hydras, whatever, to attack the Banshees first. And Telia made the choice to... Well, she didn't even have to make the choice. She had queens defending. But, you know, say you don't have that many queens, and you have to make the choice of either countering while they don't know about it or showing the Mutas to the Banshees. Well, Kyla threw out the cheese. Not usually a cheesy player. Her aggressive builds are more about the surprise Cyclones or Hellbats, or in that last game, Battlecruisers. Not really so much about like the 2 racks or 4 racks. In the top right, on this potential final game, it is the pink Zerg Telia. In the bottom left, as the green Terran, she is Kyla. And even if this is the last game, Kyla loses 3-0. She still takes a good portion of the prize cut. I don't know what exactly the cut of the prize is right now, since it's percentage based and we're not like maxed out. But at 24%, she's currently getting, hold on, $40.32, because Match Reno actually does the math. I think she gets a little bit more, though, because I had to put a future tournament fund prize. I couldn't put 0 for it. But that's, I mean, that's still pretty good. And Telia is going to walk away with $100+ Dollar. I'm increasing her esports earnings. You're welcome. This is all a big thanks to all you guys who support. I don't take any monetary benefit from the match arena. It all goes to the players and some to the admin. But, you know, being on my channel, I'm really appreciate anyone who uses the Twitch Prime sub or considers subscribing in general. Oh, look, Tia is a bit scared of the T-Rex. As well as following the channel helps me out too. But for anyone who has donated to the match arena now or in previous iterations, you're one of the reasons that we have it going on for so long, for basically a year. So give yourself a pat on the back. And there might be some collaboration with Matcherino in the future to supply codes as well, so that if you don't have any cash and you'd still like to support the Matcherino side of things, you will be able to. And then, I guess last note, as this could be the final map, this is a tournament produced by me, like hosted by me, cast by me, all that stuff, but I did make it with the Banshee title in mind, asked for permission to use the name, because I wanted to get the word out to anyone, any woman who are looking and getting into StarCraft 2, or maybe you are, but you feel like you can never really talk about like being a woman in StarCraft, then there's a place for you to actually hang out with cool people, and that is the Discord of the Banshees, which I believe is on their Twitter. I am hesitant to provide the link because it is an open link, and if you're, well, if you're a man, then you're not actually allowed to join. So, if you want to put the work in, go to their Twitter, and then go to the Discord, and then hop in and say hi. That just about does it. Now I go back to the game. So 2-1-1 is on the way. Kyla finally transfers over into a bio build. She seems to be generally mech, but she has a flex build, and it seems to be the 2-1-1. I think maybe she did this last game too. You know, 2-1-1, that's not really the point of the build. The 5-minute 2 medevac drop, and it's cool and all, but it's not really the point. Especially on a map like this, I would say more so we're looking towards that follow-up, either 2-base all-in or maybe 3-base, but the point is you're going to be utilizing the tank and just rally of the map. So there's tank spots, not really, but the, like, over here is okay. And then you have this really short rally because it's still kind of a short map. So medevacs don't have a problem, Marines and tanks do. You can actually hold a position once you've got it locked in. So that's probably something Telia is more worried about too. She knows the deal with the 2-1-1, and that shouldn't be a problem. But she would be worried about the follow-up. She'll be paying close attention to how many engineering bays are put down, if you can see it. If they even put a 30C down, where is it? I don't know how fast they come down. In this case, okay, here we go. So there's another way to change things up. That's not transitioning, is what I was going with. But you can actually do a 2-1-1 attack, but you include Hellions. So I was going along the lines of like you do a regular 2-1-1 and then you follow up with tanks. Well, this is more about the 2-1-1 part. This is with Hellions, however, so you don't swap off the factory with the starport. Meaning you only have one medevac, so your plan is not really to bounce around the bases. It's about doing an actual attack to the face. Hopefully I win. Now, Tila is going to go for this fast +1, which can be a response to a 2-1-1 if he's got it fast enough. He's also going to see the armory pretty much no problem. These lanes get in, they weren't supposed to, yeah, but she also would have seen it with the Overlord. And that is a big enough tell. Now, this is getting a little awkward as the army had already moved out, so we're going to have some SCV damage go down. Yeah, a lot of SCV damage go down. But Celia saw the armory, she sees the lack of units, so she knows that something's coming away across the map, and she's gonna build nothing but lings. But playing without a Baneling Nest or a Roach Warren, or she doesn't have a Roach Warren, but playing without Banelings or building Roaches could be a mistake here for our pink Zerg. We'll see how it's gonna go down. These are not combat shield Marines, and there's only 2 Hellbats to help out. The rest of them were stuck behind trying to help the natural, but it might just be enough. 2 Hellbats, really, that's where the Queens come in. And there they come, but I don't know why Celia is not making Roaches. Did she forget that she had a Roach Warren? As she's forced to evacuate the 3rd base, this is actually looking much better than anticipated for Kyla, who's also, I guess she's I'm not sure what that was about. There's a bunch of micro going down here, but the drones are being pulled into this as Telia is waiting for her lings to pop, but she has a larva problem now as she has stopped injecting from some of these queens, and Telia was supposed to be well set up for this, is still, finally she's building some roaches, but she might have temporarily forgotten that she had it. I think initially she figured that she was going to be able to defend no problem, but then finally realized that she needed the roaches. This is a lot of good damage coming down from our Terran player, who did take some SCV losses back at home, but has a third CC on the way and is currently rebuilding. Those, oh my god, the Marines are so damn low, but the medevac is still around. She's still producing one medevac at a time, and Telia just cannot produce enough army. +1 carapace is finally going to finish as well soon enough, but the drones are under attack. Oh my god. Oh, it almost was a disaster. Almost. Some of these drones are pulled very risky to the third base where there could have been Hellions rallied. But I guess the real risk is still the naturals. The Hellbats are still barely alive with the help of the medevac. That is finally over, but that did so much more damage than it should have. Kyla is Master League? Yes, she is. At least Masters 2. +1 melee also has finished up. Kyla was a little late to her own combat shield, so there's definitely like macro mistakes on both sides, but Telia really let that, I mean, she let herself go. She got overconfident, I think is the problem. That's why she only had Lings to defend against that when really she wanted a couple of roaches to help. And that does knock Telia down a peg. It's not the end of the game. Kyla, her main problem in the last series these two played was that she would get a substantial lead, a bigger lead than this one even, still lose out as the mid game went on. A couple things that are still in Telia's favor, the upgrades, right? Kyla still doesn't have any upgrades. She's currently adding on the double engineering bay. And she does have some creep spread to work with, but unfortunately not in the most important place, which would be her third. This is a really bad place to put a hatchery. I'm just gonna say it. It's not a great place to put a macro hatchery. You're making your own choke against what could be tank pushes. It's not great. Also, that's where the attacks can come into, and you're going to be losing, you know, 2 hatcheries when really it should have only been 1 kind of deal. Telia does have some army, but it's still not well equipped against what Kyla has. It's mostly Lings. The hatchery's gonna go down, and funnily enough, the macro hatchery is gonna be the new mining hatchery. But more realistically, Telia just transfers over to this base. Looks like she was anticipating a couple of drops to the main, and that's why her queens are here. But things are really getting wonky. Telia is really starting to lose track of her macros. Her injects get later. Her overlords aren't being made as she is severely supply blocked. She needs one really good fight so that she can finally just calm down, take a second, and rebuild everything she should. Now that is not a very big force because so much of it is still dragging behind. I think Kyla has to be very careful with this. And she is. Telia, I think, would be much better off abandoning this base, but she can't because there's a very expensive macro hatchery that she built. There's no creep spread to work with, whereas if she had just transferred everything over here and, you know, to the north simply, it would have been better. We finally had one of those trademark Telia run-bys that kills a lot of SCVs because it's more so in here, maybe in some banelings, so 16 drones go down. That would have been even more of a reason for Telia to sacrifice this base, but she did try and hold it. She did lose a couple of drones. She's about to have 2-2. She's about to have centrifugal hooks, but does she have enough of an army? Her lava's still a problem as well as she throws down a couple spine crawlers and is continuing to build queens. But I think Kyla might have gone too deep in an attempt to all in, but the banelings crash on top of the tanks. It actually ends up being good enough. So deep on the creep, there wasn't much room to maneuver, and the tanks only got a couple of shots. The Lings are still rampaging around her base, and even some of them survive. They killed about 20 workers. They scouted the 4th base, but that 20 worker kill was substantial. It keeps Telia in this game and continues to be a pain in Kyla's side as far as her matches against this lady goes. It's always what brings her back, drags her back down in a game where she thinks she's probably gonna win. Now I've been finding some units that are being misrallied over here. Kyla's main problem right now is, I guess, so focused on how Telia defends. Oh, still no wall on either side. That I wasn't really paying attention to the macro of Kyla. At some point, she just didn't have any mining because she's been harassed by lings. At other points, she has minerals and gas, but is not building. She's missing I guess, actually, she's missing more barracks at this point. But yeah, she wasn't producing, and that is a big problem because she's also producing marauders at this point. Not the best thing to be producing. It's no longer about the roaches, which basically puts her at this position where she has all together a hefty army, but split up like she's been doing, like she's being caught doing. Is not working out well for her. So an attempted drop into the natural is really wonky looking. You know, a lot of marauders again and a tank. They're just being surrounded. They're being eaten up by the double upgraded lings, and things are looking to once again be tipping back into Telia's favor. Now Telia still has this larva problem. She still really needs a macro hatchery. And Kyla's starting to get her 4th base back up and hopefully add on a couple of production facilities. So things are just not really, you can't call it either way. They're both making a lot of mistakes and what is becoming a very wonky game. But Telia now has room to have a macro hatchery, a 5th base, because her 4th is done. She's prepared to build more spore crawlers if she wants to make sure she doesn't take any more damage. She could even add on an infestation pit and a hive, as she's also banking a bit of gas. But currently just focused so much on dealing with what is now just a single drop. Okay, there we go. More queens on the way, another hatchery. Kyla has her 4 bases back up, back to 45 SCVs, which is perfectly okay, considering Telia is only at 51 drones herself. Telia has finally used up her gas in the building of mutas, which 400 gas is not a lot when you build mutas. It's a bit better when you're building only banelings. Are there plans to have any profiles of the players? No, personally. That's not really what I, was gonna do, but since we have so many repeat players and repeat champions, it would be something I'd be interested in. Maybe sit down with Telia one of these times, but maybe for the future. The Banshee group is doing profiles on their members, but all right, these lings might be upgraded, but that was a substantial bioforce. Really needed the help of the banelings to come forward. But there are mutas here now, and the marauder heavy composition is once again going to bite Kayla in the butt, I do believe. Now, some marauders are not bad. I want to make that clear. One marauder at a time against Ling, Baneling, Muta can sometimes soak a couple of Banelings or just even tag them with Marauder slow. But you definitely don't want to have 3 times Marauder production, and probably not 2 either. But she thought maybe it was going to be roaches or I don't know, but she got 4 tech labs, so her production really is not great. And the reason maybe they're both down low on minerals and gas finally again is because they both never really had a great economy. Although Kyla's is now looking a lot better. These mutas are looking kind of laughable. You really need a count of 12 plus before they really become some type of threatening counter force or harassment force. But they're trying to find anything they can. A couple Marines, maybe a tank that's left alone for way too long, or non-guarded mineral lines. Apparently only one of these bases had a missile turret. While this is going on, a hatchery went down, but Telia could go ahead and give that up and not be too worse for wear. She's actually going to take the fight because, again, her units are upgraded, and there this time were no medevacs. Kyla is preparing for what she assumes is going to be an Ultralisk Hive transition by getting a Ghost Academy, but that's going to be a little bit too early. She also scans, thinking maybe, like, how are you still affording everything? Nope, no 5th base. Oh, well, 6th, or whatever you want to call it, but mutas once again find SCVs. They even find a tank, and when you're losing a lot to 5 mutas, that's when things are really... That's when you're paying attention to a million different things. As this simply shouldn't be happening. Now it's a bigger force, as Telia's literally been adding, like, 1 muta per cycle. Doesn't have a lot of gas mining. These aren't even saturated quite yet. You can see all the cracks really start to show. But it's getting there. And it's certainly keeping Kyla on focus. It's keeping her back at home. It's forcing her to use minerals to build missile turrets, of which she still hasn't built enough, it seems like. I mean, things are looking good again for Telia. And while they were evening out in supply for a while there, with Telia now up about 30, that's a much more comfortable position for the Zerg. Telia might still have those upgraded lings, as I don't even know if Kyla... Oh, she definitely got the armory, right? She's a Hellbat push. Yeah, she's not going to 2-2. She's probably just entirely forgotten about upgrades. Oof. That still doesn't mean you can take on a really big Bioforce without Banelings. Like, Telia needs to get either Banelings or Ultras in here. Preferably both. Might be forced to give up this base again. Where's the rest of her army? Oh my god. Oh, lordy, the queen army has arrived. I didn't realize how many queens she made. Is she pulling them? She is just pulling them. Like, there's like one injecting. Oh, the banelings collide, and Kyla is deep on a creep once again. GG, as there is also a huge Ling run by, and Kyla, despite getting an early victory, can't follow through. But what a wonky game. That was a very cool game. A lot of both players are making a ton of